The idea of like starting over after so long of like learning to be pretty again, whatever that means. And like, of course, these things are all gendered and societal and blah, 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 but they're real because they're the world we live in. I'm giving you gold, okay? This is worth going long for. I'm Jaclyn Moore, and I am the executive producer, one of the executive producers and showrunners of Dear White People. My pronouns are she, her, and that's a long journey. Let's see, back when I was 4. I was queer before I was transgender. I was out as a queer person for half of my life at this point. And this was a nagging thing in my head and in my life that I kind of knew, but it was like the thing you didn't want to look at. And then, I don't know if you all heard, but there was like a pandemic. It was like a whole thing. And the idea of like waiting around became a lot harder. And I would say if I met a witch and she was like, I can turn you into a woman that will be like equivalently attractive, whatever that means, but like to what I was living as when I was presenting as a man, tomorrow, in an instant. But you can never go back, and it's one time, and you gotta answer right now. I would have said yes without any hesitation. And so my therapist sits with this, and she goes, okay, I hear all that. Can I push back on one thing? And I was like, sure, like, what's this gonna be? And she's like, you do know a cis man wouldn't answer the witch that way. Figuring out what the difference is between being comfortable in the body that I had been living in and the presentation I had been living with for so long, and being at home in it are two different things. We had just started production on the 4th and final season of Dear White People. I can't wait for everybody to see what we did, but I also didn't want to steal focus. You know, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm very lucky to be a white person who gets to tell that story with Justin Simeon. And like, I feel so honored and blessed that he and our cast and our very talented staff of like all writers of color trust me to help run that show and tell those stories. And I really felt uncomfortable with what I imagined would be making a spectacle of myself as people were having this sort of final hurrah. And finally, I just couldn't wait anymore, and it really was starting to be a problem for me. And so I just did it. I came out publicly in December of 2020. After the holiday break, we went back to production. My chair just had a different name on it. It was the job and is the job that changed my life and my career. And the idea that I almost deprived myself of going through that experience with these people who had become family to me was really, I'm so grateful that I didn't. Every so often I can forget that I don't look the way I want to look, and that when people, oh boy, when people see me, I've been out for 6 months. I've already had beer bottles thrown at me on the street. I mean, I was an openly queer sex worker. Like, those are two groups that were not always popular, but this is different. Transphobia today is where homophobia was 25 years ago. And as bad as getting beer bottles thrown at me was, that I can kind of write off. Bigotry is bigotry. Bigots are gonna bigot. Like, that's not going away anytime soon. And that's a hatred that I can understand, even if I don't agree with it, obviously. Turns out I'm not transphobic. I'm sorry. No, yeah, tissue would be great, but I'm okay. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry, Keisha. You drew such a beautiful face. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, guys. My life is all over my writing. I don't know how anybody makes anything that isn't a little autobiographical. So transitioning has definitely impacted my work because there were moments in hindsight where it's like, oh, people always said I wrote women well. And that was a notable, unconventional thing for a then tall white guy. So maybe I was like, I guess, living in these spaces artistically before I was ready to live in them in the real world. I don't think there's enough training and care for the transgender community, but there's not enough training and care for any marginalized community. Every summer is a summer of reckoning about race. And it's like, maybe it's not a summer of reckoning. Maybe it's literally a entire society of reckoning that needs to happen. But I am such a believer in art being the bleeding edge of all of these things because I think it's what moves the needle for most people. It's like art and like knowing someone who's going through it. Those are the two things that like make a real impact. And it's so dumb to say, but queer people are just people. Trans people are just people. And as such, like any people, we have an infinite number of life experiences and emotional reactions. And some of us are pieces of shit and some of us are saints, but it's all of it. Those can be stories of joy and stories of triumph and stories of love and stories of romance. And I really want us to stop making them stories of nothing but pain. You know those videos that go viral online where it's like a colorblind person putting on those special glasses that let them see color, and they put it on and then they like freak out because it's like, oh my God, that's what blue looks like? Living as your honest, true trans self is that every day. And sometimes the depth of that color is scary and is mean and is cruel. But the beauty of it is also profoundly deeper than anything you thought beauty was before you did it. And the best advice I can give you is to go for it. Go. It's not too late. It's just not. You can have these moments where you forget about it and everything is great. And you feel like the world is seeing you the way you want to be seen, and that you feel like people are looking at you like you're beautiful in the way you want to be beautiful and not in some other way, and it feels so amazing. I want to get to the point where we can tell stories where there are enough trans people in a show that if a trans person does something messed up because they're being selfish or because they're scared or because they have a defense mechanism and they hurt somebody, that the show doesn't have to live with, are we saying trans people are messed up or messy or hurting people? No, because there's 3 trans people, there's 4 trans people in the main cast. And it's not a show that's explicitly about transness. I think that would feel revolutionary. I think it would feel, I don't know, like freedom.